Hello, folks. This is Barry Chamish. I got a great show, and as you realize, my radio station is shut down because of my first guest's birthday. Jerome, happy birthday.
My birthday? No, it's not my birthday.
Come, Nick, you sent me the wrong message. I got a cake saying it's your birthday. All right, I take it back. We're back on the air. Look, the reason I have you back is the last interview was about your book, Hunting Hitler, New Scientific Evidence that Hitler Escaped Nazi Germany. Now, you could think that that was just another conspiracy theory, except for the past 4 weeks, I've been watching the History Channel, and they've got remarkably the same title of their show is called Hunting Hitler. And I thought about you. Did you have anything to do with this series?
Well, no, they never contacted me, but I mean, you can't copyright a title, so they probably borrowed the title, and I'm sure it looks like they've read the book, and it looks like they've used a lot of the material on the book, but I was never contacted by the History Channel when they did the show.
They called it Hunting Hitler.
Yep, I know. Same as my title, and they used a lot of the material, as I said in the book, that I used. So clearly, I think the book influenced them.
Look, this is a very serious series. A lot of money went into it. How could they take the title and get away with it?
Well, you can't copyright
it, right?
No, you cannot copyright a title. It's one of the parts of publishing. A title can be used by anyone. You can copyright what you write. You know, the text can be copywritten, but not the title.
Then why aren't there lots of Hamlets out there?
Well, some books get to be so famous and the like that it'd be apparent that they were copied, and it wouldn't distinguish your book from the original. It was well known. But if you take a look very carefully at published books, I mean, it's not rare to copy titles.
Oh gosh. Well, the first thing I thought about was you.
Pretty regularly. I mean, it would have been nice if the History Channel had contacted me. I would have been happy to have assisted them. But I'm pleased to know that the subject is getting more attention.
It's serious. Your book, by the way, was serious, and I viewed it that way. But this series, really, you want to know something? It makes your conspiracy theory very, very mainstream.
Yeah, well, I mean, the thing that triggered off my interest was the investigation that was done by this state archaeologist in Connecticut. I'm just looking at the book now. His name was Nicholas Bellatoni. And in 2009, he got access in Russia to the Hitler skull, which they've had.
Oh my, he was on. Okay, he managed to take back a piece of it to his lab and do DNA. He was on the show.
Yeah, and in fact, what he did is he did the DNA. He took the little pieces of the skull. It took enough to get the DNA when he was examining it in Russia. And then he brought that back to the University of Connecticut Center for Applied Genetics and Technology, and he ran DNA tests, and the DNA tests showed the skull was from a woman under 40 years of age, and her identity was unknown. So clearly...
And this was the body that the Russians took from Berlin back to Russia, allegedly being of the Fuhrer, right?
Yeah, supposedly, this was the skull that they had, that they said was the one they dug up in the Fuhrer bunker in 1946. That's what they said this skull was. I mean, when you research it, there's so many discrepancies in the Hitler story. The Russians did not find Hitler's body, and the Russians, including Stalin, knew this. Stalin refused to accept the medical findings in the autopsy that these were Hitler and Braun, Eva Braun's corpses. In fact, he even disciplined Marshal Zhukov, who was the famous Russian hero of the Battle of Berlin, for saying initially that the Russians had Hitler's corpse when Hitler knew they didn't have Hitler's corpse.
Not Hitler, Stalin.
I mean, Stalin.
Hitler probably did as well, but
Stalin disciplined Zhukov and said, "You've got to quit saying that Hitler's corpse was found by Russia because we don't have it." So Stalin insisted that Zhukov change his tune about the Russians having found Hitler's corpse, because Stalin firmly believed that they did not find Hitler's corpse, and that Hitler had escaped.
Well, according to this show, that's what he told Truman.
I wrote about that too. I mean, I found the discussion there was at the Potsdam meeting, which occurred right at the end of the war. It was pretty clear that from the very beginning, Stalin took aside Truman, and he made it clear to him that, these were not, that they did not, the Russians did not believe that they had found Hitler's corpse, and the Russians believed that Hitler had escaped. Now, this was the Potsdam meeting was July 16th to August 2nd. You had also Secretary of State James Burns accompanied Truman to the Potsdam meeting, and in casual conversation, Burns asked Stalin whether he believed Hitler had died in Berlin. And then in his book, Speaking Frankly, Burns said that Hitler told him that...
No, you got to stop doing this. Stalin told him.
Stalin told him that Hitler had either escaped to Spain or Argentina. And so, it's clear. I also reported in the book that 2 months earlier, in May 1945, after the death of Roosevelt, Harry Hopkins, who was one of Roosevelt's closest advisors, took a special mission to Moscow at the request of Harry Truman to prepare for the Potsdam meeting. And in discussions with Stalin in Moscow, Hopkins commented that he hoped Hitler's body, which had been found by the Russians, and Stalin said that the Soviet doctors thought they'd identified the body of Joseph Goebbels, but they were not convinced they had found Hitler's body. So, there was multiple confirmations that Stalin said he thought that Hitler escaped Europe in a submarine that may have gone either to Argentina, was where his first choice was.
Well, and that was his final choice.
Pretty much.
According to this show. Okay.
Yeah, I mean, that's ultimately the proof seems to be, and now that the archives of the FBI have been released, which also used in publishing my book, it was very, very clear that the FBI had highly credible information that Hitler had escaped by submarine to Argentina. We can discuss that at length. But
I want to discuss the declassified FBI documents. It was the release of them that inspired both your book and this series. How did they get the blackout? This is the part they show in this. Have you seen the series?
Yes, I've seen 3 of the episodes. I haven't seen the 4th one yet.
It doesn't matter. The first 3 had the secret documents. Suddenly the black became visible. How do you do that?
Well, no, what they were doing in the show was that they were blacking out sections that had not been redacted, and they were just exposing them as if they'd uncovered them.
Oh, gosh. Really?
It was just a cinematic trick to...
Fooled me.
Yeah. The parts that are blacked out in the documents are not readable and not recoverable. But they just, blacked out text that is available and made it appear as if they had revealed it or learned how to read it, which is not the case.
Oh, gosh. Well, let's go to the fact of the matter. The FBI were hot on the trail of Hitler. They knew he survived. And from what they're showing, now you can verify this, they knew it from the beginning.
They knew it from the very beginning. I mean, as soon as first of all, the Russians were the ones who got to Berlin first. And so the Russians had access to the Hitler bunker. But we had teams, military intelligence, in Berlin very quickly after Berlin fell. And we were interviewing various people who knew Hitler or related to Hitler or Eva Braun. And we were for instance, Eva Braun's family.
Well, she had a sister. I don't think anything beyond that.
Well, there was this Hans Fagelin who gave an interview, and he was the father of Hermann Fagelin, who was the Nazi officer in the Waffen SS who had married Eva Braun's sister, Gretel Braun. And Hermann Fagelin was a member of Hitler's inner circle. Well, he was interviewed by U.S. military intelligence, and Hans Fagelin told them, I can say with certainty that Hitler is alive. So he's received word through a special courier. And he went on to detail how the family of Eva Braun felt that they had been in touch with Hitler through a courier, and that both Eva Braun and Hitler had survived, and that's what the family of this Eva Braun through Hermann Fagelin, and he would be credible. I mean, he was a top
he's just one of them. My goodness, the people surviving are opening their mouths on at least 2 continents. That it was, you know what? Without Spain, he wouldn't have got there, but he had an ally in Franco.
Well, I also want to. I mean, one part else that I write in the book that I think people don't really fully appreciate. Trevor-Roper was the historian who wrote the book on Last Days of Hitler in 1947, which set this story that Hitler married Eva Braun, and then they did a double suicide.
Yep.
And when I researched it, when I went into the archives, I also did a lot of research in the National Archives in College Park, and I found files that had not been seen for a long time that were the U.S. intelligence files. This is not the FBI files. This is the U.S. military intelligence files. And what was clear was that this guy, Trevor-Roper, was a young historian, and he was recruited from England to go over and write this book.
To fool the population?
Well, when he got to Germany, he was given a memo that had been written by Major Edward Sachs, who was one of the U.S. Army General Services chiefs. He was a military intelligence, and what this guy Sachs had done, if you read his memo, was that he detailed the conclusions of that he wanted the Trevor-Roper's book to reach, which is the double suicide. Hitler marries Eva Braun. Trevor-Roper comes over, and he gets handed Sachs's draft of what he's supposed to write, and then he takes less than a month to complete the book, study and then write the book. And when he accepted the assignment, he basically said, well, okay, he must go to locate eyewitnesses and all the rest. But the problem is most of the eyewitnesses were in custody, in Germany. They were in prison, so he was not really allowed to see, even in person, the eyewitnesses that we had in custody. I mean, basically...
apparently it would have done him no good. Nobody saw Hitler's corpse.
That's another part of what I write. I really did an analysis of the people who were supposed to have been in the Hitler bunker, And for instance, just the eyewitnesses all told different stories. You know, one of them said Hitler was sitting next to Eva Braun on the sofa. Another said, well, no, Hitler was in the chair and Eva Braun was in another chair. They disagreed as to where Hitler shot himself, whether it was in the right temple, the left temple, or the mouth. There was disagreements as to whether Hitler shot himself or took cyanide capsule that killed him. I mean, all the accounts are so different that it is clear the supposed eyewitnesses were making up the story. And
but
many
Goring and it's what, 6, 8 kids, whatever, they did kill themselves, right?
What's that?
We're not sure.
Who's
in
that?
retrospect, now that we know this.
Garibald's kids?
So,
I mean, I think it's pretty clear that Garibald's suicided the whole family. I mean, I think that's pretty clear. Okay. There's not the near doubt about Garibald's, but the problem with Hitler is that no body was ever found. The eyewitnesses disagree on the story. They tell different stories. The medical evidence is missing, and the medical evidence is highly questionable. The autopsies that the Russians have done produce information that was not possibly the case. I mean,
and who is the woman who was at least 10 years younger than Eva Braun that they would have had to kill?
Yeah, there was another double they would have had to have killed.
Yeah.
There was a Hitler double that was put into the outside of the Fuhrer bunker, and at first the Russians filmed this Hitler double and thought that it was the real Hitler. In fact, I've even got a picture of the Soviet army making the film. You can see the Soviet cameraman, the Hitler doppelganger lying outside the bunker May 2nd, 1945. But a close analysis of the Hitler double makes it clear that it wasn't possibly Hitler. And it had
no, he took the coward's way out. I say it was the coward's way out, okay?
Well, well, the point I make, Barry, in the book is that here you've got Adolf Hitler, who is, a mass lunatic murderer, genocidal maniac, who believed that he was the, God's gift to the German people. And if anything, this kind of psychology, when he loses a war, does what Hitler did. He blames the German people for not being worthy of him. But he's not going to say, oh, I'm sorry, I shouldn't have done this. I better marry this woman and then kill myself. That's just not in the psychology of this kind of a person. This kind of person is going to say, it was the German people's fault that he didn't succeed. They weren't worthy of him. And
well, I won't go into Himmler shaving off his mustache and taking cyanide when he's caught. I mean, they're really not very.
Himmler's a little different. Himmler was trying to escape, and Himmler was arrested and found out. Yep. Now, Himmler, in that circumstance, was going to face the same kind of thing that Goering faced. I mean, he was going to be imprisoned and probably hung. Now, at that point, I can see the rationality of deciding you're going to kill yourself. But for Hitler, who is not yet caught, to say,
and has the funds, the immense resources to get the hell out of there, and friends worldwide, why not take it?
And say, these people weren't worthy of me. I'm going to continue the movement. Even if I have to go into hiding, I'm going to continue with the ideology. I'm going to have the next generation of Nazis rise up out of Argentina. He was working, Bormann was working with Dulles, with Alan Dulles, who was...
We have to start again. How did Dulles come into this?
Well,
hold on, Jerome. You're talking about Alan Dulles?
Yes.
Now, how did he get into this story?
Well, Alan Dulles was working with the OSS, which was the predecessor to the CIA,
right.
The Office of Special Services. It was a, it was a intelligence agency, And he spent the war in Switzerland. He was in Bern, Switzerland, and he was there working with the Nazis in Switzerland and in contact.
In cahoots or against his will?
No, he fully wanted to do this.
Oh, great.
See, Alan Dulles and his brother had worked in law firms and with the Brown Brothers Harriman of Wall Street. They were financing Hitler before World War II. Dulles, Wall Street financed Hitler. Prescott Bush was part of the Harriman brothers, where the Bush family got started, was they were financing Hitler. Prescott Bush, along with Alan Dulles, John Foster Dulles, the Harriman family. The Prescott Bush was running a Nazi bank, U.S. bank that FDR closed down after Pearl Harbor. I discuss all this in the book.
I'm just going to ask, you don't think that they, in some way, were responsible in any way for the escape of Hitler, do you?
In my book, I say that that's one of the secrets that we had to create this cover story for, was that Alan Dulles facilitated, I'm confident, Hitler's escape.
All right. We have a commercial coming up, but this subject, it's not just fascinating to me, it bothers me as well. The villains always seem to get away. A lot of people suffer, but they don't. And your book discusses that. And please tell people how to get it.
Well, it's Hunting Hitler. Now the best way to get it is on Amazon.com or one of the other internet services. Just look my name, Jerome Corsi, Corsi, and Hunting Hitler is the title, just like the title of the current History Channel special. I
know. It bothers me as well. You were a year before the series.
Oh, actually,
aired
I published this book I guess it was 2014.
January 2nd.
Yeah, about a year. That's right, about a year. They picked up on it right away.
You don't know Steve Rambam, do you?
No, I do not.
All right. I think I do, from Canada. I recall him being a Nazi hunter. Well, he's their chief Nazi hunter. So you know.
Yes. Well, I think they're doing an incredible job. I think they're, it's a good series. I'm glad it's on. I'm happy to see the subject get more media attention. I think within the next 10 or 15 years. Next 10 or 15 years, I think it's going to become common knowledge that Hitler did escape and that we assisted Hitler escaping. I'd
say after this series, a lot of minds have been changed about this conspiracy. All right, the conspiracy was to cover it up.
Well, the conspiracy was to make sure that no one knew the truth, and the truth was that the U.S. military intelligence and the FBI at the end of World War II had no credible evidence that Hitler was dead, and the Russians had no credible evidence that Hitler was dead. And what they did was they fabricated a story, brought in this young historian, Trevor-Roper, told him what to write, and published his book as the official story.
Jerome, we have to take a 3-minute break. When we come back, I have no choice. I'm going to dive into the rat lines. I'm going to dive into Hitler being... Let's say he had a nice vacation at a monastery. All right?
Right.
All right. Now, we'll be back in 3 minutes. And by the way, folks, in case my tongue sounds weird, one of these days I'll have it taken care of. It scrapes against teeth. All right, folks, we'll be back in 3 minutes with a very good guest, Jerome Corsi. This is Barry Chamish. 3 minutes, folks.
Visit crosstheborder.org, CROSS, crosstheborder.org, to get your print, EPUB, or PDF version of the book. The rapture will be canceled. That's crosstheborder.org.
I know you all want answers, and believe me, so do I, and I'll do my best to get them.
Despite Nicolas Cage's promise to do his best to get left behind rapture answers for us, don't hold your breath. Not everyone believes Left Behind is true prophecy. Some may even regard as conspiratorial the mainstream re-release of the Left Behind movie with actor Nicolas Cage portraying the main character as an attempt to further reinforce in the minds of all this perception of false prophecy in order to condition the masses for the play about to begin. If you want true Bible prophecy answers, get the book, The Rapture Will Be Canceled. The author exposes the Latin rapture origin, the 7-year tribulation deception, true Bible revelation of Daniel's 70 weeks, the abomination of desolation, the restrainer, America in the Revelation, the image of the beast and the mark of the beast, and the truth about God's chosen people, and so much more about Bible prophecy. This book will shatter the Left Behind paradigm of future events. Get the book, The Rapture Will Be Canceled. Visit crosstheborder.org, CROSS, crosstheborder.org, to get your print, EPUB, or PDF version of the book, The Rapture Will Be Canceled. That's crosstheborder.org.
Since the beginning of time, kings have sought it, nations have fought for it. It has been traded, it has been borrowed, it has been purchased, it has been stolen. There's a reason for it. To secure the blessings of liberty to ourselves and to our posterity. Invest with the security of gold and silver. Call Discount Gold and Silver Trading at 1-800-375-4188 or visit discountgoldandsilvertrading.net. Listen to Financial Survival with your host Melody Cedarstrom right here on FirstAmendmentRadio.com at 4 p.m. Eastern or 1 p.m. Pacific Time. Visit discountgoldandsilvertrading.net or call Discount Gold and Silver Trading at 1-800-375-4188. Toll free 1-800-375-4188.
Hey folks, I'm back. This is Barry Chamish. You know, all my books are at lulv.com. That's www.lulv.com. There's a search box right at my last name, Chamish, Chamish. You'll get to my books. David Samlin is keeping my website, barrychamish.com, up, so you can get to that. And I'm going to dive into this subject. All right, Jerome. Hitler had two major allies, and they were well prepared to accept him. One was General Franco. He was repaying a Civil War debt for wiping, well, the Nazis wiped out the opposition. So he felt he owed him something. And then the Catholics, and they ran Hitler through their rat lines. Can you go through these 2 points?
Yeah, and he had another good ally, which was Allen Dulles, who was...
Boy, all right.
And no, the first, I want to make sure we cover 1 point first. That is, in 1943, the Germans began to really understand that we're not going to win the war. I mean, they lost North Africa. We were, when the invasion of Italy occurred, it was pretty clear that the tide had turned. Russia did not succeed in Stalingrad. They didn't take Moscow. They were retreating across the Eastern Front. And Bormann, who was secretary to Hitler, who had been in touch with Dulles, the Nazi Germany decided to start moving money out of Germany.
I know what this is. This is the OSS, the safe haven money exposed in 2009, right?
Yeah, I mean, and
thank you.
I write about it extensively. That see, Alan Dulles had come up in Wall Street. He'd been, with the Brown Brothers Harriman, and he began with, even though in London and in Washington, we knew that Dulles was moving the money out, no one stopped him. What Dulles did is between 1943 and 1945, he created with Bormann investment structures where they could invest, their stolen counterfeit money stolen from the Jews in the concentration camp, into the U.S. stock market. Bormann created some 980 front companies outside Germany. 98 of them were in Argentina. There were many of them in North America, the United States, and Canada. And in fact, a large part of the post-war boom in the U.S. stock market was funded by Bormann with the Nazi money investing into U.S. corporations.
Wasn't Martin Bormann the highest-ranking Nazi put to trial?
No, Bormann never. It's been debated whether his body had been found in Germany. I think he escaped. Escaped. But you had basically all the Swiss banks were serving the Germans, moving a massive quantity of funds out of Germany into businesses with these interlocking corporations that were set up by Dulles, and major money center banks were involved. National City Bank, which is now Citibank, Chase, now J.P. Morgan Chase, Hanover, which became Manufacturers Hanover Trust. It's no longer in existence. These were the banking centers that Dulles used to move the Nazi money. So that the money was put into Argentina. Spain was very favorable with Franco, was another favorable place for Hitler to get to he
had to get there first. It's a long ways from Berlin to Argentina.
Precisely. And, with the rat lines, with the Vatican, what the Vatican was doing was the Vatican was working in conjunction with the U.S. Red Cross, and we were issuing fake credentials through the Red Cross to Nazis, top Nazis, who were able to utilize these credentials to get into Argentina. And we established a monastery-based rat line where the Nazis had a way of fleeing Europe, going from monastery to monastery. Some of the key figures are very well known in the rat line. Catholic clergy who played a role in this, major role in helping the Nazis flee Europe. And this whole Odessa structure, which Perón created in Argentina. So, a Nazi who was seeking to escape Europe would be issued a permit through the Red Cross with the assistance of the Vatican to enter Argentina under a false name. He had a Red Cross travel document under the alias, and these were created supposedly for refugees who had lost their identification papers. These Red Cross travel documents became the equivalent of a valid passport. So with a landing permit in Argentina and traveling documents through the Vatican and the Red Cross, the Nazis could apply to an Argentina consulate in Europe and get an entry visa. They would then leave the consulate, the Argentinian consul, with an Argentinian visa stamp on their Red Cross papers, with the consul issuing the immigrant an identification certificate, and that was used to obtain an identification when they got to Buenos Aires. So the Catholic Church was instrumental in setting up the rat line, but also through Dulles, we hired the entire Gestapo organization of a Gestapo guy named Galen, who we made the backbone of the CIA in Germany at the end of World War II. So we essentially were bringing over as many Nazis as we could, U.S. involved in this, including Operation Paperclip, in which we brought several thousand top Nazi scientists to the United States, including Bormann, who was, Matthew von Braun, who was the architect of the U.S. Moon landing space program,
Yeah.
who had been producing, the V1 and V2 rockets in Peenemünde using Jewish slave labor.
Yeah, I know.
And of course, he became a U.S. hero at the end of, World War II, brought over, and he was responsible for creating the U.S. space program that was, the Apollo satellites and landing on the moon, besides creating our first generation of ballistic missiles that were used for the nuclear arsenal in John Kennedy's time, during Eisenhower and Kennedy's era. That was all Werner von Braun, who was who was SS.
Yeah. I won't go into it, but about 30,000 of my people died under his control. All right, neither here nor there. Let's do what they're saying on this show, that the rat lines got Hitler out. Now, he couldn't apply. He was a little too well known. So they hid him at the Samos Monastery. The abbot, his name was Maro, put him up there till the heat was off. And then they moved him to Vigo, the summer residence of Franco, where he was put on a sub. That's their. What do you think about their?
Well, it's one of several different. It's how Hitler got out of Berlin is
straight by train.
Well,
tunnels.
There's also some reports that the Nazis had a twin rotor helicopter that they developed that they could have used.
This show says he took a Condor.
Well, but this is how he got. What he did. Some of the FBI papers say he took a Foch Angelus FA-223 helicopter out of Berlin, and it went to an airfield outside Linz, Austria, and from there he flew to Barcelona, Spain, on April 26, 1945, in a Junkers 290 A6 airplane that was flown by the decorated German Luftwaffe pilot Werner Baumbach. And Baumbach wrote a book called Broken Swastika, and he was in Berlin at the time involved, and he seems to suggest that he in fact was involved in a mission to fly Hitler from Barcelona into Barcelona from Austria.
The story is not that profoundly different.
No, it's not very different at all.
It's the same.
Yeah.
How he got there is a little different, but it was from Germany to Spain, where we hid out until a submarine got him.
Yeah, well, the Germans had there were two submarines that landed in Argentina, and all the papers, by the way, are in the archives. In the book, have all the documentation from the Argentinian papers when the submarine I think Hitler was on, this U-530, it surfaced at Mar del Plata, which is a port city in Argentina.
In the south.
In the south.
Oh, okay. I was just looking at it this week.
Yes.
And they say it was scuttled.
Well, yes. First of all, the U-530 surfaced, and it had a skeleton crew on it. Now, the crew, and I had the manifest of the crew had Argentinian cigarettes and Argentinian pesos and Spanish dictionaries. Now, the German Navy did not issue these as standard issue. So if they had Spanish dictionaries, they were probably expecting to land in Argentina. And if they had pesos from Argentina and cigarettes from Argentina, they had landed along the coast before surfacing in Mar del Plata. And I have in the book the U.S. Navy intelligence reports sent back to Washington of credible evidence that Hitler was offloaded by this U-530 boat before it came to Mar del Plata. I have the pictures, I have the documents of the U.S. Naval Attaché, the Military Intelligence Division. It's documented. These documents were transmitted to Washington July 18th, 1945. I've got the record locators where you can find them in the archives, and they basically said that they believe that the crew offload Hitler before, and the captain of the ship, before the ship with the skeleton crew surfaced in Mar del Plata. Now, the crew was interrogated by the Argentinians. We took the crew and the boat, the U-530, back to Washington, and we ultimately scuttled the U-530 off the shore of Virginia.
Virginia?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. Why? That's a long ways. Okay.
Well, they brought the boat back. They wanted to study the boat, and they wanted to make sure, if there's any evidence about Hitler. They also wanted to study the boat, and they just it was inconvenient to admit that it surfaced in Argentina. They just wanted to basically get rid of it. It was basically,
we're getting lost a bit here. Look,
wait, okay.
46 subs did not surrender.
No, there were. I know that. I know that.
That's not insignificant.
I know.
They had missions.
Right. Well, it's clear that the U-530 was one of the boats. There were two U-boats, U-530 and the U-977, that surfaced in Mar del Plata and essentially surrendered. And of the two boats, it's believed that Hitler was on the first one, which was the U-530. And all the evidence, it had a life raft, but the life raft was missing. It had seawater in the life raft compartment. Basically, the U-530 crew were very evasive in answering questions when interrogated by the Argentinian naval officers in Mar del Plata, and when questioned by U.S. officers, naval officers, both in Argentina and in Washington. It's very clear that, and we've got the interrogation reports of this crew. We've got photographs of the crew. It largely seems that the crew was lying and had a story that they were all telling, which had been an invented story. But the crew had with them Argentinian cigarettes, Argentinian chocolate, Argentinian pesos in their possession.
Well, let's give this TV series credit. They found two witnesses that saw Hitler in Spain without the mustache. They have, I think, a pretty good case that the subs were refurbishing themselves in the Canary Islands, a Spanish colony, I suppose, before they went off to Argentina. I think they did a pretty darn good job of tracing how he got out.
Well, and the documentation, I track it was well, and I think they did too. The family that helped them, I mean, the Argentinians had been preparing for a long time to create in this Bariloche, which is in another part of southern Argentina it's very much like little Germany. They had families that were very close to Hitler in this area that were in touch with Hitler and inviting him to come to Argentina at the end of World War II. The family's connections and the documentation even shows, I even found a memo written by J. Edgar Hoover, where he said and documents that he believes that this family was instrumental in helping Hitler escape and bringing Hitler to a hotel that they'd set up, part of the German hotels, and then in Bariloche they had a building, a mansion on this internal lake built, where the lake can only be accessed at the time by an airplane that could land on water. So
And just in case there were bunkers underground, if he needed to hide, there were good spots.
right, I mean, there's plenty of place.
Yep. He had a whole network protecting him.
Network that's
at least 60,000 people, Nazis, hardcore Nazis protecting him.
right. I mean, this was the point is you've got to understand that, the story that's told is that the United States went and wanted to destroy Hitler and that we were opposed to Nazi Germany. The intelligence agencies, the Wall Street had supported the rise of Hitler and believed that our post-war, this was John Foster Dulles and Allen Dulles, that post-war our enemy was going to be communist Russia. So the attempt was made early on by U.S. intelligence starting in 1943, to develop alliances with the Nazis with the anticipation that after World War II, if we beat the Nazis, we would become the Nazis. We would use their SS as our CIA, invest their money into our stock exchange.
They consciously thought this?
Yes.
Oh,
we were going to bring their scientists to the United States.
That we know about. But, there was a space age, there was a justification. But, I mean, creating America as a reflection of the Nazis, that's not a good thing to think about.
But, in fact, the argument can be strongly made that the post-war world was shaped by people like Allen Dulles, who had every intention of making us into the Nazis of the future. They fundamentally agreed with the Nazi ideology. The Nazi ideology was, remember, the Nazis were leftist. They were National Socialists. And they believed that you had a strong business supported by government, and that you had a strong social welfare state. I mean, Hitler was the first to introduce universal health care, and Hitler...
They're saying they admired him?
Yes.
Oh, my.
Admired him strongly.
He built the car for everybody and a road system to support it, and we're going to support this?
Well, in fact, Henry Ford was one of Hitler's...
I know the story.
...buddies, and the whole idea of the...
I admire you, Henry.
And I duplicated in the Volkswagen, which is, the people's car, and the Autobahns, which... it's an early idea that we were...
And Eisenhower turned that into the road building in America.
Well, I actually think that the idea originated with Henry Ford and the others. It was when we realized how difficult it was to move across the United States pre-war. The idea of a interstate highway system was being developed in the United States. It got built after the war, but Hitler took the idea and started with the...
All right, you know what? We don't have enough time, so tell people how to get your book. Obviously, you are taking a different view than the TV series. You're actually putting a lot, so far they haven't anyways, gone into this, the dullest side. And
they probably won't. It's too politically active for them to touch. They will not make it clear. What the documents make clear is that one of the reasons this got suppressed is that the FBI and Hoover were realizing very quickly that the reason Hitler got away was because we not only allowed it, we facilitated it. And by the way...
quickly, tell people how to get your book.
Okay, it's Hunting Hitler. My name is Corsi, C-O-R-S-I, and Amazon.com is the best way to get it these days.
And Corsi, C-O-R-S-I, don't forget, people. I'm going to go one last point that I just... wanted to stick with, and that is you were big on the 9/11 conspiracy theory.
No, I've not been so big on it. I haven't done as much work on that one as yet.
No, I'm just going to finish it off.
Yeah.
I got the ultimate proof that made me sort of big in this. At 5:20 in the afternoon, 57 story, building 7.
I know.
Went down. Yes.
I've not done as much work on that one. And it's just,
Oh,
I possibly will.
you don't even have to dive deep. That building went straight down. Larry Silverstein said that he pulled it with the fire department's permission, and it had the explosive to go straight down. The problem was that one airplane didn't arrive. It crashed in Pennsylvania.
Yeah.
We're not exactly sure why, but they had a building full of explosives and no plane to bring it down.
The point is, to do the Hitler, which I do want to stand by, I don't have to go into 9/11. Let's just stick with Hitler right now.
Okay, I spat it out. I'm sorry. What's your final points?
Well, I mean, I think if you take a look at the book, I've also written the book on JFK's assassination, and the two fit together because Dulles and his whole, determination to not allow, any kind of rapprochement with communist Russia, I think also ended up playing into the Kennedy assassination. I mean, I think Dulles is a dark figure just being appreciated now, and it's, the documents are coming to light to make it clear that Allen Dulles, in going back, solidly through World War II, was pro-Nazi.
Folks, while we have time, next week my guest is Phil Nelson, who has covered JFK more than extensively. Sorry. Jerome, sorry, I shouldn't have done that, but I did.
Well, Phil Nelson's a good guy. Say hello to him for me. I know Phil Nelson, and I like him.
He is a good guy.
And I think he does good work, and I admire his work. I think you'll find if you read my book on hunting Hitler that it goes beyond what the TV series is going to reveal. But I'm very pleased that the TV series is doing what they're doing because I think it legitimates the subject in a way that otherwise would be.
Oh, are you kidding? It's done marvels for you.
Yes.
Folks, he is no longer Jerome Corsi, conspiracy theorist. We've got a major series acknowledging you, whether it does openly or not.
Well, I appreciate that, Barry. Thank you very much.
Oh, we're in the same boat, darn it. And one of these days, Rabin's assassination is it'll be hunting Hitler in the future. Oh, goodness. Jerome, that was a great interview, a pleasure. Thank you. Eliza Bas-Menachem comes on in 7 minutes. And don't lose me, Jerome. We're following you closely.
Okay, thank you very much. Great to be back with you.
Night all. I'll see you folks back in 7 minutes with Eliza Bas-Menachem.